Anyone who has been paying attention in our world knows that we are in big trouble. Martin Rees, the former Astronomer Royal of Britain, puts our chances of survival into the next century at about 50%, a prediction he made about 12 years ago before some of the more bad news came in. Noam Chomsky recently said, "For the first time in human history, we are facing realistic questions of species survival, at least in any decent form." Of course, he's referring to human species. We know that a lot of other species are already going extinct. 200, the estimates are 200 a day. Between the dangers of nuclear proliferation, the possibility of nuclear war, environmental destruction in general, and climate chaos in particular, many people feel hopeless about the future. As Kevin was saying this morning at the outset, many people are feeling anxiety and depression naturally. They're naturally feeling a worry, especially parents and especially young people. Now, we cannot know the future, and we're hearing great ideas today, and we should definitely keep an open mind and heart. But in the very now, if we look at the issues going on the planet right now, there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of scary things that we don't have to imagine in a future. They're happening now. So one of the passions in my life for quite some time is how to stay sane in this crazy world. How do we proceed, though we feel fear sometimes, and we feel anger sometimes, and we feel depressed sometimes about it? How do you keep going? And this is a subject that I've had a lot of conversations on over the years, and I've reflected on it a lot. So I've come up with a few suggestions. I'm always open to more. And I invite you to just let these in quietly. I always say take the best and leave the rest. Let them in quietly. If anything fits, it's an offering. The first is do whatever you can each day as almost a ritual in your life. Do whatever you can do to calm yourself. And each of you might have your own specific thing. I know it seems trite, but it's the first rule in emergencies. Keep calm. It's there for a reason. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Vietnamese Buddhist master, uses a metaphor of if you're in a boat, if you're in a rowboat with a few people and the boat springs a big leak, if everyone panics, you're most likely to drown. But if one person stays calm and organizes and suggests a smart way to get out of the situation, you've got a great chance. So this is not something that's trite. This is something that you, in a sense, owe yourself to keep your own instrument tuned, right? To keep your own instrument tuned each day. So for you, that might be a walk in the park or a walk in nature or putting your hands in the soil, Scott, or listening to a beautiful piece of music or meditating. I like to just call that being quiet and letting yourself simply rest in being. Or reading something that quiets your mind, whatever your particular proclivity might be. But to really give that to yourself each day as a way of keeping your own instrument tuned. Jack Kerouac said, be in love with your life. And by extension, you will be more in love with all of life. Again, this is not a selfish act, but rather your way of letting your well fill up. And don't you know when, let's say when you've fallen in love and you walk down the street you feel a sweetness about everyone you see, right? Everyone sort of looks beautiful and you want to hug them or give them chocolate kisses. You also feel a lot more gratitude, being in love with your own life. You feel a lot more gratitude for living, for every precious day. After all, these are precious days. Another reflection is don't indulge dark pictures of the future. In Zen, there's an expression, you paint a tiger on the wall and become afraid of it. Yes, there are scary things, and there are possibilities of scary things, definitely. But it is not very useful to picture horrible things. It will sap you of your energy. It'll make you feel apathetic. And it may not be the case. I interviewed Desmond Tutu in the 80s sometime. And during the interview, he kept saying, and when we end apartheid, and I kept thinking every time he was saying that, I would think, good luck, right, never happened. In a few years from the time of this interview, apartheid had ended. So it's really useful to not picture darkness, to really stay with your present experience and do your good work. By the way, I'm not suggesting, just hanging about. I'm suggesting that you do whatever you're doing, but with the clarity of your own present awareness. And that leads into another I find useful point, and that is to be helpful, to be of service. There's a line I love. I don't know who said it. I can't find who said it online, but service absorbs anxiety. Don't we know that? When you're helping out, your focus naturally is on other instead of on yourself. And that's always a relief. Be of service in all the little ways you can. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be that your name is in the news doing some noble act. But in little ways, even anonymous ways. And it puts your heart, it aligns your heart with wanting to be a servant of the greater good. And that is very calming. Very, very calming. Sometimes we worry that it's all for naught, of course, I once interviewed Ram Dass a long time ago. And I asked him, it was in the good old days of the Cold War, I call them, when that was sort of our only worry. And I said to him, are we facing the end of days? Or do you think we're moving into an evolution of consciousness? Are we about to explode into the glorious new age? And he said, well, if we're facing the end of days, the best way to go into the end of days is to open the mind, is to open the heart and quiet the mind. And if we're facing a flowering of consciousness, the best way to enter that is to quiet the mind and open the heart. It's the same either way. W.S. Merwin, the poet, said, on the last day of the world, I would want to plant a tree. So we're of service, not necessarily with a goal in mind. We're being helpful, even if it's the last day of the world, for its own sake. And you will feel better in it. Another reflection that I find calms me down, is that of evolution. To really depersonalize the entire thing. Years ago, there was a book called Zoom. It was a picture book, kind of a kid's picture book, but actually quite profound, where it starts out with a picture of a person standing in their yard. And then each subsequent picture zooms the lens out. You're seeing now his neighborhood, and now the region, and now you're seeing the continent, and then you keep going until you're way in outer space, and there's just this tiny dot that is the Earth. That this is a process underway, and we can do everything in our power to vote with our lives for goodness, but it's also a process underway. So to not panic in the face of it, there's a certain kind of quiet surrender, not in apathy, but in just plain quietness in the heart, that can look at this world, at this existence, at this rollout, and say, ah, so. And lastly, this has to do with those moments when hope falters or disappears altogether. And in my case, I simply say the word to myself, courage. Courage is from, the word courage actually comes from the Latin root cor, which is the same in French as the heart. So we're talking about a lion-heartedness that is required to live in our times. We have this capacity. We have this amazing capacity. I've seen it so many times in situations where I didn't expect to see it, in others and in myself. And here we stand, here in this hall, not very far from where in 2001, firefighters ran into towering infernos, and many, many of them never came out, right? What did that take? What was that? It was fundamentally love, really. That was what the strength was. It was love. So yes, we live in terribly scary times, it's true. But we do each have a capacity that really all it requires is putting your attention on it. We can direct our attention and use that facility, by the way. Use that facility. Use your own reflections. I'll close with a quote from my friend Leonard Cohen. So come, my friends, be not afraid. We are so lightly here. It is in love that we are made. In love we disappear. Thank you.